Okay, so you want to buy the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building ever raised by human beings. 828 meters of glass and steel in a city with no property tax, where 18 million tourists a year walk straight past your front door. 2 million of them will happily pay to ride an elevator to the top and look out of a window. Money isn't a problem for you. The math looks easy. Buy the most famous building on the planet, sell the view, count the tickets. How do you lose? But here's the strange part. This thing cost about $1.5 billion to build. Roughly 5.5 billion dirhams. And that's just the tower. It sits inside a downtown that ran to around $20 billion, all in. The surest tourist trap on Earth. A guaranteed magnet in a tax-free city in front of the most photographed skyline on the planet. And building it nearly bankrupted the people who built it. They had to be rescued for around $25 billion. And then, to say thank you, they renamed the tower overnight. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what it costs to own. The bill that lands before you've sold a single ticket. You'll know where the money actually comes from, and it isn't the apartments. You'll know why the most famous building on Earth had to change its name to survive. And you'll know whether the tallest building in the world is even a good business, or just the most expensive billboard ever built. Start with what's even for sale, because here's your first problem. You can't walk in and buy the Burj Khalifa, but you can buy into it, and the menu runs from pocket change to a sovereign's budget. The cheapest way in is a ticket. At the top, levels 124 and 125, from 189 dirhams. That's the entry price just to stand inside your own fantasy. Want to go higher? The gold ticket, level 148, 399, and the platinum, levels 152 to 154, 769 dirhams, nearly 4 times the base price. For a higher window, now we're climbing. An actual piece of the building, an apartment. Floors 20 through 108 hold around 900 luxury residences. The average flat changes hands for 6.25 million dirhams, about $1.7 million. And every one of those owners pays some of the steepest service charges in the entire city, just to keep the lights on. And then the whole thing. To build it from scratch, 5.5 billion dirhams, $1.5 billion. And that, it turned out, wasn't even enough. Because to keep the lights on, it took a $25 billion rescue from the emirate next door. 189 dirhams, all the way up to $25 billion. Quite a menu. But owning a piece is the easy part. The real question is how a building like this makes money in the first place. And the answer isn't the apartments everyone fixates on. Here's the trick. A skyscraper doesn't make money from being tall. The Burj Khalifa isn't one business. It's 4 businesses stacked on top of each other, and a tax-free city does the marketing for free. Easiest way to picture it. It's a vertical city, a hotel on the bottom, apartments in the middle, offices in between. And at the very top, the magic trick. A window you pay to look out of. You're not selling floors, you're selling altitude. Stream 1 is the view. 1.5 to 2 million visitors a year, paying an average of 300 to 400 dirhams a head. That's 450 to 800 million dirhams in tickets alone. Add the restaurants, the photos, the souvenirs on the way out, and the deck pulls in somewhere between 500 million and a billion dirhams a year for an elevator ride. Stream 2 is the beds. The bottom 39 floors are the Armani Hotel. 160 rooms, around 82% full at 2,000 to 3,000 dirhams a night. Rooms plus the restaurants and the spa, call it 150 to 300 million a year. Stream 3 is the rent. Those 900 apartments yield up to around 5%, roughly 330,000 dirhams a year on a 6 million dirham flat. Across the tower, 200 to 300 million a year in rent. And then the leftovers, the corporate offices on the high floors, the shops below, the Atmosphere restaurant on floor 122, another 50 to 150 million. Add it all up. The building grosses somewhere between 930 million and 1.8 billion dirhams a year. Call it $250 million to $500 million. The view is the marketing, the stack is the money. Sounds like a printing press, until the first bill arrives. Okay, the deal's done. You've signed the check, you own the tallest building on earth, and now the bill for the first day of ownership. Start with the power. Before you've sold a single ticket, this building draws around 250,000 kilowatt hours a day. That's about 458,000 dirhams. Every day, roughly 500,000 dirhams just to keep itself cool. The air conditioning alone runs to a peak cooling load near 10,000 tons of refrigeration. You're not cooling a building. You're cooling a small town turned on its end, in the desert. Then the service charge. The Burj Khalifa carries the highest service charge in all of Dubai, 67 dirhams and 88 fis per square foot. Across roughly 2.5 million square feet, that's about 200 million dirhams a year. Cleaning, security, reserves, just to keep the building running. Then the windows. A 36-person crew spends 2 to 3 months on a single cleaning cycle of the facade. Not a year, one cleaning. 57 double-deck elevators and 8 service lifts. Running non-stop, every one of them a maintenance contract that never ends. And then the ones nobody warns you about. Insurance on the tallest building on earth. There are no comparables, so there's no cheap quote. And a reserve fund for the day the air conditioning plant and the elevators have to be torn out and replaced. Money you set aside now for problems you don't have yet. Put it all together, and the Burj Khalifa burns through 300 to 500 million dirhams a year just to exist. $80 to $140 million. No tickets sold, no rooms booked, no profit whatsoever. The tallest building on earth costs 500 million dirhams a year to stand still. And that bill is survivable. In a good year. The problem is the Burj has already lived through a year that very nearly ended it. Buildings like this fail for a lot of reasons. But 2 mistakes show up over and over. Mistake 1. You build a monument into a bubble. Construction ran from 2004 to 2010. The tower topped out at 828 meters in early 2009 and walked straight into the global financial crisis. Dubai's whole property machine was financed the way these things always are. Pre-sold apartments, bonds, bank debt. And it seized up, all of it. The emirate had to be rescued. Abu Dhabi approved roughly $25 billion in loans and guarantees in 2009. Some reports put a single loan at $10 billion alone. A building that took 6 years to raise was very nearly undone in about 6 months. And here's the tell. It was supposed to be the Burj Dubai. It opened in January 2010 as the Burj Khalifa, renamed at the unveiling after Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed, the ruler of the emirate that wrote the check. The most famous building on earth is named after its own bailout. Mistake 2. You bet everything on bodies through the door. Iconic status keeps people coming, even in a downturn. But it does not make you immune. In 2020, global travel collapsed, and the visitors simply stopped coming. And a tower this expensive can't idle. That 500 million dirhams a year goes out whether anyone shows up or not. The view doesn't get cheaper to run just because nobody's there to buy it. Which brings us to the man who bet a city on it. Meet Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, the founder of Emaar, the company that built the tower. He wanted the tallest building in the world as a monument to his city. The Burj Dubai, the centerpiece of a $20 billion downtown, raised on borrowed money and apartments sold before they existed. And the timing could not have been worse. The crisis hit at the exact moment the thing was finished. The project that was meant to crown Dubai instead needed saving. And so, at the opening, he stood beneath the tallest structure human beings had ever built, and unveiled it under another man's name. The neighbor who'd bailed him out. The vanity project survived. The vanity didn't. So strip away the lights and the story. How much does the tallest building on earth actually make? Scenario 1. The good year. Tourism is running hot. Dubai pulled in 18.5 million visitors in 2024, up around 9%. The decks are full. The hotels at premium rates. The apartments are let. Revenue runs near the top of the range, around 1.8 billion dirhams. Costs held near 400 to 500 million. That leaves you a net operating income around 700 million dirhams a year. Against the 5.5 billion it cost to build, that's a payback of roughly 8 years. And valued the way investors actually price these things, the tower is worth as much as 23 billion dirhams, $6.35 billion. Not bad for a window. Scenario 2. The bad year. A shock. A 2020 all over again. The visitors stop. Net income falls toward 300 million dirhams. But the costs don't move. The power bill doesn't care whether anyone showed up. And valued on those numbers, the same building, the same 828 meters, is worth about 4.3 billion dirhams, $1.17 billion, barely above what it cost to build. Payback stretches past 18 years, same tower, same height. The gap between a good year and a bad year is the difference between a $6.4 billion asset and a $1.2 billion one. $5 billion of value. Riding entirely on whether strangers feel like flying to Dubai this year. So is it a good business? In a good year, genuinely, yes, a money machine. But it's a money machine bolted to the single most volatile input on Earth, human wanderlust. So if you do decide to buy the Burj Khalifa, here's the part the whole thing has been pretending. You can't, it isn't for sale, not to you. It's owned by Emaar, and Emaar is effectively owned by the Dubai government. As of 2026, Dubai Holding holds nearly 30% of it, after buying out the sovereign wealth fund itself. The tower was never a product. It's a government's trophy. And here's the number that should sting. The Eiffel Tower, a fraction of the height, none of the cooling bill, draws around 6.3 million people and earns about €106 million a year. The Empire State Observatory, around $100 million. They earn what the Burj earns on a fraction of the upkeep, because they were never trying to be the tallest, only the most visited. The Burj chases height, they bank visitors, which tells you what the Burj Khalifa really is. It was never a building you buy to make money. It's a billboard for an entire city. The tower sells Dubai, and Dubai sells everything else. The apartments, the hotels, the flights, the whole tax-free dream. So if you ever get the chance to buy in, remember what it actually is. Don't try to own the tower. Own the city it advertises. The house always wins. And here, the house is the government that put its name on the door.